When I was 24 years old, I was pretty naive and fresh out of college, and I thought I knew everything. So when my college boyfriend proposed to me, I said yes. I thought that was what freedom was. So soon enough, I was married, and within a year of our marriage, I was pregnant. I was pretty happy too. I was perfectly content with the idea of being a stay at home mom, looking after my child and taking care of the household and everything. And my ex husband had been earning well enough by then, since he just had to take over his father's business. So things were going well, and I quit my job shortly after my daughter was born because I knew that I wanted to be with her all the time, and I thought that things would be fine. But unfortunately, that's not how it turned out for me. I guess I should have picked up on the signs earlier. But I was wearing rose colored glasses, and I refused to acknowledge the fact that my husband at the time was not comfortable with the idea of us having kids so early in our lives. Even when I had told him that I was pregnant, it was pretty obvious that I was a lot more excited than he was. And a couple of times he even told me that he was not sure that it was a good idea for us to have children so early because we have not even hit 30 yet, and there's so much that he still wants to do. And he doesn't think it would be possible to live that kind of life with a child, and both of us would be better off rethinking all of this. Unfortunately, I, like an idiot, did not really think much of it, and I told him that he was just getting worried for no reason, that it would all be fine once our child was born, and he didn't have to think about it so much. Everything would be fine. I did not recognize that he was distancing himself from me and the baby as a pregnancy got on. I just thought he was being cautious or whatever, and I guess I was just ignoring the signs on purpose because I wanted to be with him, and I didn't feel like giving up my dream of having the perfect family. But of course, it did fall apart within just 3 months of me having given birth. After my daughter was born, I could see that my ex husband was already pretty unhappy, and he would spend as little time with us as possible. He did not seem very connected to me or the baby, and he would hardly ever be home. He was constantly making excuses to stay out late. Sometimes it was work, sometimes it was catching up with friends that he hadn't seen for ages, but it was always something or the other. Even when I would get him to try to bond with my daughter as a baby, he did not seem very interested in it, and I guess I should have known what was going to happen, but I still didn't expect it. Anyway, 3 months after the birth of my daughter, he told me on a Friday that he was going for a work trip and he wouldn't be back until Monday. I didn't think much of it. I thought it was just another one of his business trips. But then Monday came and went, and he did not come back. I started to get worried, obviously, so I tried to contact his parents. But even they didn't respond to me, so I started calling him and texting him nonstop, hoping that he would respond at some point and explain everything to me. But I got nothing out of him. And I knew that he was well and alive because I had spoken to his friends. And they told me that he was active on social media, but somehow I couldn't see his account, so I knew I had been blocked. I couldn't understand what was going on for the first couple of days, but then finally on Friday the next week, he finally texted me back and told me that I should check his sock drawer, and then I would have all the explanations that I needed. So, yeah, because it would be a difficult conversation, he decided he was not going to have it with me face to face. He didn't even have the decency to do that. And instead, he let me worry about whatever was going on for one full week before telling me that he had left some stupid note for me in his sock drawer. And when I read it, it was basically just him telling me that he was very sorry, but he couldn't do this anymore, and that he had never wanted to be a father at such a young age, and he couldn't be the family man that I wanted him to be because he expected a different kind of life. He said that he felt that he had rushed into this marriage thing headlong, even though he was the one who had proposed to me first. He was the one who had asked me out. He was the one who told me that he loved me first, and he was the one who asked me to marry him. But anyway, in the note, he said that he couldn't do this anymore and he was leaving and he hoped that I could forgive him at some point in time. Obviously, there was nothing much left for me to do except file for divorce and full custody of my child. I wish I could say that I ruined him or something, but I was so shattered and heartbroken that I decided to just let it go. And I think that was the best decision that I made. It was a dignified move, and I think it helped me that my daughter was around to ground me because otherwise I would have just lost all sense of myself. But yeah, anyway, I filed for a divorce and it came through pretty easily because we were willing to come to a reasonable settlement. And as for the custody case, that was no trouble at all because he had already decided that he did not want to be a father. However, I did make sure that I got child support payments out of him because that was the bare minimum that he could do. So, yeah, that was what happened. And it's been 8 years since then. And I think I've moved on with my life. But I have to say, the first couple of years after the divorce were very difficult for me because I thought that he loved me. I was sure of it. But after what happened, I didn't know what to believe anymore. He had just dropped the life that we had built for ourselves, like it meant nothing to him. And after that, I was just never sure of myself anymore. It took me a really long time to build myself back up, and after that, I focused only on building my career and raising my daughter. Of course, I did open up my heart eventually, and I had a few relationships, but none of them were that serious until I met my current husband. Let's call him Jake. So I had always been very skeptical about introducing my boyfriends to my daughter because that was a very important part of my life. But with Jake, I was always sure that at some point in time I intended for him to become part of our lives. I met him 2 years ago through a common friend, and within 6 months of being together, I knew that I loved him. I tried to be very cautious with him, especially because of whatever had happened earlier. But he just made me feel so safe that I didn't feel like I had to have my guard up with him. Anyway, my point is that even though we have known each other for only 2 years, it just felt right. So after 8 months of dating, I introduced him to my daughter, and they got along so well that it was difficult to believe they were not actually biologically father and daughter. After about a year of dating, we moved together, and 6 months ago, we got married on a whim. He did not propose or anything, but yeah, one day we just woke up and we decided that we wanted to get married. I didn't make a full thing out of it or anything. It was a very small private ceremony that we had in our backyard, and we had a celebration with just our families and close friends. And there was the signing of the documents and everything, but that was pretty much just it. So Jake and I are pretty happy, and while my daughter hadn't been calling him dad or anything, but she had been referring to him as MPJ because the first time that I had introduced him to her, I had said that he was mom's partner, Jake. And she thought abbreviating that would be funny, so that's what she's been calling him. And we have never tried to teach her to call him dad or anything either because we feel like that's something that should come to her organically. But he's open to the possibility and he would even like the idea. But again, we're not going to enforce anything. However, at her recent birthday party, we realized that we didn't have to teach her anything. She already thinks of him as her father. But I feel like the way we found out could have been better, and if I could have done without my ex husband's involvement. So, what happened was that we were all celebrating my daughter's birthday. She turned 8 a couple of days back, and obviously, like any other birthday, I did not expect my husband to show up. He knows when her birthday is, and I still live in the same house because the house was a wedding gift to us from my parents. So, in the divorce, naturally, I got to keep it. So, it's not like he didn't know where to find us. He could have attended her birthday parties if he wanted to. He could have come by and wished her well, but it was very obvious that he did not want to do any of that. He did have visitation rights because, regardless of how much I detested him, I was not going to take that away from my daughter and deprive her of anything. if there was even a little bit of a chance that she could have a relationship with her father. But he's the one who did not want a relationship. He made that very clear because he never checked up on us. Yes, we would get the child support check every month without fail, but he never bothered to ask me about her, and I never bothered to offer any information either. In fact, we've hardly ever spoken in the past 8 years, so I did not expect anything out of the blue this year either. But then all of a sudden, he was at my door on the day of her birthday, and we were all shocked. And my daughter did recognize him, because obviously I've had to answer some difficult questions regarding her father. Because it's not like she's a total infant and can't figure out things on her own. She did pick up on the fact that most kids in her class seem to have two parents, but she did not. And a couple of years ago, I had to tell her that her father had walked out on us and we did not know where he was. I had even shown her an image and she had been sad about it, but at least I had been honest with her, and I don't know if it was the best thing to do, but that was the only thing that I could have done because she used to ask me a lot about it, and it did not feel right to lie. Anyway, she did recognize him when he showed up because she was near the door, and to be honest, I hadn't seen or bothered to check who was outside because we had been expecting food delivery, so I thought that it must have been them. But then I opened the door, and it was my ex standing there, and everybody was just so shocked that nobody knew what to do. And then ultimately, it was my daughter who spoke up first, informing him that she knew that he was her father, and my ex started smiling, telling her that he definitely was, and he was here to make up for all the birthdays that he had missed so far. He looked at me and he told me that he had a bunch of presents in the car. 8 presents, actually, to make up for every year that he had missed. And then he told me that even though he had done something very disgusting 8 years back by abandoning us like that out of selfishness, he had never really been able to enjoy his life the way he thought that he would. And now, for the past couple of years, he had been regretting everything. But he didn't have the nerve to come back to me and apologize. He thought it was too late, but now he wanted to make amends. He wanted to start by being a real father to his daughter. He said that he was finally ready and that it was time for him to step up as a dad. And unfortunately, the conversation was happening right in front of my daughter because I was so shocked that I couldn't even move from my position at the door, and she was standing right there. And I really don't think that she should have heard any of that, but she did. But anyway, after he had said all of that, I kind of came back to my senses and I told him that it was way too late and I couldn't just let him waltz back into our lives after being absent for almost 8 years, nearly a decade. I also informed him that I was with somebody else now, that I was married. And then he started telling me that he was not here to win me over. He had long given up hope of that happening. And he knew that he did not deserve me, but the least that he could ask from me would be a chance to be a father because he had always regretted what had happened there. He told me that he knew he had lost me forever and he was genuinely happy for me that I had been able to move on with my life. And now the only thing that he wanted from me was a chance to prove that he could be a father. He seemed pretty sincere about it, but before I could even say anything, my daughter started crying, and she rarely ever cries like that, so I was quite concerned and I forgot all about him. I just turned to her and I started trying to console her, and I was trying to get to the bottom of why she was crying all of a sudden when she made it all clear on her own. Basically, by listening to the conversation, her 8-year-old brain had convinced her that this man, that she hardly even knew, who happened to be her father, was going to now come and take her away so she would have to live with him, and she did not want that. And she kept telling me that she did not want to go with him, and she wanted to be with me, and she wanted him to leave. And then she told him that she already had a father and she did not want him, and she just wanted him to go away. But then Jake and her grandparents had also joined us, and we were all trying to comfort her, while my ex just stood there in the doorway awkwardly. And when she said that she already had her father, she hugged Jake tightly, and she refused to even look at the doorway after that. For me, that pretty much decided everything, and I totally ignored the shocked and angry look on my ex's face because this is exactly what he deserved. He had abandoned his family, so now he couldn't just expect us to be there for him, waiting as if nothing had happened and expect us to welcome him back into our lives with open arms. And I was quite happy that our daughter had rejected him so openly and had made it very clear that she did not want him as a father. Because to be very honest, I did not think that she deserved him as a father. She deserved much better, and so did I, which is why Jake was in our lives now. After that, it was simply a matter of me telling him to leave before upsetting our daughter further on her birthday. And at that point in time, he did not argue, but I should have known that the situation was going to get worse because now it's been a few days and not only is he trying to guilt trip me, so are his parents. And I find that shocking because when my ex had left the family, so had his parents. In these 8 years, not once had they bothered to check up on their own grandchild. So honestly, there's no difference between them and my ex, and I can totally see why they support him. Anyway, their argument is that now that he is finally ready to be a father, I should at least give him a chance because it's the only fair thing to do. They also keep reminding me that he does have visitation rights technically, even now, so he should be allowed to use them, and I don't get to just keep our daughter away from him for no reason. In all the messages and emails that they had sent me so far, they keep insisting that it would be good for father and daughter to bond, and at the end of the day, no matter how much I want it to be true, Jake is not actually my daughter's biological father, but my ex is. And that's just a fact. So I'm going to have to make my peace with it, and I can't just let an 8-year-old grudge get in the way of my daughter having a real relationship with her father now. They keep saying that everybody makes mistakes, and so did my ex, and he should get a chance to remedy it. And it would be cruel of me to prevent that from happening, but honestly, I don't see it that way. Frankly speaking, I can't think of this situation like that at all. I don't think that I'm doing my daughter some huge disservice by not letting her absent father, who she didn't even know cared about her existence until a few days back, see her. In fact, I think it's good for her right now. And I think when she's a little bit older, I let her decide for herself whether she wants it or not. But for now, I think I should be calling the shots, and I don't think that he should be seeing her. And yeah, people do make mistakes. And I don't know whether he has actually really realized if it's a mistake or not. I don't know what is going on in his head, but it's also a fact that mistakes or whatever actions we take all have consequences. So now he's going to have to deal with the consequences of his own actions. I don't see anything wrong with what I'm doing, like everybody else, and I just want what's best for my own child. And I truly, honestly believe that for now, I don't want to confuse her because she's too young. And I think it would be better for her to stay away from her father until she's a bit older and can understand things better. I don't know if that makes me a selfish person because I'm really not doing this to punish him. I'm doing this to protect her. I'm very confused about all of this, so I'm here to ask AITA for not wanting to let my daughter meet her father, who hasn't been a part of her life for the past 8 years, anytime soon. Update 1. Hi. So it's been a couple of days since my original post, and I have spoken to my parents. I've spoken to my husband and I've spoken to my daughter, and we all have come to the conclusion that right now it would be best for us not to let the two of them have a relationship as of now. I'm not doing it out of malice or anything else, but my daughter made it very clear when she spoke to me about all of this that she did not feel like being around her dad. She hardly even knew him. And she was afraid that if she left with him, things would get weird, and she just wanted to be with our own family for now. So when she's slightly older and has a better grasp on the whole situation compared to now, maybe I'll let her reevaluate what she wants, whether she wants a relationship with her father or not. But for now, I'm going to honor what she has asked of me, and I'm not going to ask her to spend any time with her dad. Now, the only problem is that I'm going to have to somehow get this message through to my ex, and I'm pretty sure he's not going to take this well. He and his parents have been badgering us, as in me and my parents, for the past couple of days, and it's very clear that they are not willing to take no for an answer. I've already mentioned all the things that they have said. I spoke about it in my original post, and they've been doubling down on it ever since. They have even dropped hints that if I don't let my daughter see him, then he might have to take things to court. But I'm not very scared of it because, let's be real, I hardly think any judge in their right mind is going to be on his side here. Given the fact that he's not bothered to check up on his daughter for the past 8 years, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, he comes back around and he wants to be a father. I'm pretty sure that that's not how it works, but I don't think he understands that. Anyway, I'm going to let him know either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but it's going to have to be soon because I can't take any of this anymore. I don't want him to keep texting me again and again. I just want to rip off the Band-Aid and get this over with. It's going to be hard for a couple of days. I know he's going to be very upset and is probably going to give me a very difficult time about all of this, but I don't care. It has to be done. Update 2. Okay, so I asked to meet my ex in person so I could break the news to him because I thought that this would be something better spoken about and discussed face to face. And to say that he was upset after listening to everything would be an understatement of the century. I thought that he would have the reaction that I had expected, that he would scream and shout at me at most and threaten to take me to court or whatever, but it was far worse than that. I had decided to meet him at my parents' place. Thankfully, it was not a public area, but even then it was very concerning how he behaved. He heard me out and tried to interrupt me several times while I was telling him everything and explaining everything to the best of my abilities. And I reassured him that I also wanted the best for our daughter, but for now, I think the best thing to do would be to let the situation settle down, and when she's slightly older, he can try again, but for now, he's going to have to leave us alone. I thought that being polite with him was going to work, but it didn't. He kept trying to argue with me, telling me that he just needed a chance to speak to her in person, and he will be able to solve it all. And I kept telling him that that would not solve anything and it would probably just make her feel worse or more confused. And I did not want to run that risk, given the upset she got the last time he appeared. Obviously, as a mother, I'm very protective of my daughter, and he needed to understand that I was not doing any of this out of anger or resentment or whatever. I was not doing it to get revenge on him, but I was only protecting my daughter's interests. But he was not having it. He started accusing me of teaching my daughter that she did not have a father and replacing him with my husband. And he said that he was never going to let that happen no matter how hard I tried, and he was going to take this to court. That was something I had expected, so I just stayed in my place and let him scream and shout at me. Unfortunately, when he saw he wasn't able to get a reaction out of me, he got even more upset and he started throwing things around, and that's where I drew the line because this was not our house. This was my parents' house. He had no right to be doing this. He broke a flower vase, threw a chair at the door, and he was just raging and stomping all around, and I told him he needed to stop and leave, otherwise I would call the cops. I was furious by then as well. And my parents had also entered the room to make sure that I was safe. And seeing that he was outnumbered, he decided to leave, but he slammed the door with all the force that he had, and I'm not even joking. I felt the floor shake. He was acting insane, and I'm glad my parents were there to see that. And I'm hoping that the neighbors heard some of it too. So, in case this actually goes to court, I'll have people to back me up on how unsuited he is to raise a child. Like, I'm sorry if he's hurt, but I'm actually not sorry at all because he's the one who abandoned us. So now, whatever is happening to him, I feel like he totally deserves it. It's probably a horrible thing to say, but I don't feel bad about saying it at all. Update 3. Hi, so it's been 3 months since my previous update, and I thought that by now my ex-husband would have definitely done something about the situation, probably come after me with his lawyer or whatever, but he hasn't done anything. In fact, I haven't heard from him at all after that day at my parents' house, and I think he's given up. Good for him, because I genuinely believe that my daughter is better off without him. She's forgotten about him. She doesn't ask about it anymore, though for a couple of weeks after the incident, she was quite paranoid that her dad was going to come and pick her up, and she did not want to leave, so she was quite anxious about it. But now she has calmed down and is back to normal, and she's also started calling Jake dad, so that's another great thing, and I'm very happy. My heart is full. In the future, I might consider talking to her about her father and ask her if she's interested in rebuilding a relationship with him. But if she's not, then I'm not going to push it. But that's still a long way to go. And now I'm just going to enjoy our life as it comes. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.